Administration planning a new mission to target drug cartels in Mexico. This is all according to 4 current and former U.S. officials familiar with that effort.
At 4:20 a.m., 6 states lit up with synchronized federal strikes. In quiet neighborhoods where nothing had stirred for hours, armored vehicles rolled in, doors were breached, and agents swarmed homes that looked like ordinary family houses. But inside, the story was anything but normal. What they found shattered expectations. Millions in cash, tons of narcotics, and heavily armed safe houses hiding children behind false walls. This was no random raid. It was the collapse of a cartel's hidden delivery empire, torn apart before the sun even rose. Subscribe to Military Power and don't miss what happens when America fights back. It started with a traffic stop in the Arizona desert under an open morning sky. A state trooper pulled over a black SUV for speeding. The driver, calm but evasive, handed over his documents with practiced movements and spoke with the type of confidence that didn't match the situation. Nothing about the stop felt dramatic at first. The vehicle had no apparent damage or suspicious markings. But as the officer opened the rear hatch, things began to shift. Hidden beneath the trunk liner, tucked under a carefully cut foam mat, were bundles of U.S. currency sealed in tight plastic wrap. $34,000 in cash stacked as if it were ready for delivery. The driver offered no receipt, no job reference, and no apparent reason for carrying that amount of money. His story kept shifting. Then came the second red flag. 2 cell phones, one of which had its battery removed. And when the officer accessed the vehicle's GPS unit, its memory had been wiped clean, leaving no trace of where it had been. It was just enough to trigger suspicion, but not enough for a full arrest. However, this was not the end of the encounter. It was the beginning of a hunt. Federal agents were called in. Within days, they matched the driver's background to a courier list circulating in a DEA watch file. That's when everything escalated. Surveillance teams tracked his movements across state lines, identifying rental cars, drop locations, and bank branches. Each lead revealed something stranger. He never stayed in one place for more than a few hours. He visited homes registered under unrelated names. He made small deposits under $9,000, always in cash, consistently, just low enough to avoid automatic bank reporting. Patterns emerged. These weren't random visits or personal trips. They were part of a larger design, almost like delivery routes. And those addresses, they weren't homes. They were safe houses. In total, federal agents identified a web of these locations spread across Arizona, Nevada, Texas, and California. On paper, each appeared ordinary. Some were listed as repair shops, others, such as daycares or small storage businesses. However, every location shared 3 commonalities: short-term leases, significant cash movements, and frequent tenant turnover. Locals never noticed. Some of the neighbors even waved at the residents in passing, never suspecting that the house next door was a holding site for cartel operations. In one case, a home set up as a daycare center had colorful toys in the front room, but the back walls were hollow and lined with heat-resistant panels to conceal the storage of narcotics. In another, a rented auto repair garage had lifts and tools, but no customer appointments. Hidden beneath the concrete floor was a trap door leading to a soundproof bunker. The deeper the investigators looked, the more organized it became. Couriers were rotated every 2 weeks. Each safe house utilized its own wireless network, equipped with encrypted routers. Security cameras faced outward to spot approaching vehicles. Delivery windows were precise. Bundles were moved in and out during early dawn hours or just after midnight to avoid routine patrols. Every detail was calculated. The phones used by couriers were burners swapped weekly. Texts were sent using code words or numerical symbols. One recovered device showed dozens of outgoing messages formatted as restaurant orders, but they were actually shipment schedules. The only reason agents caught the pattern was because of a software glitch that exposed 2 overlapping timestamps. Even more concerning was how deeply the network understood law enforcement routines. GPS data pulled from a recovered hard drive revealed that some couriers deliberately avoided certain highways and rest stops. Internal files labeled states by risk level, rating the aggressiveness of police in each region. Arizona and Texas were marked in red. These weren't amateurs. This was an interstate logistics system. Eventually, agents began to triangulate the locations of these safe houses, marking them on a digital map that resembled a military campaign plan more than a criminal investigation. They created profiles of the people entering and leaving, cross-referenced utility bills, and flagged frequent ATM withdrawals from nearby gas stations. The safe houses, once believed to be independent, were actually nodes in a much larger network. All of it tied back to that single courier, the man with a clean car, the clean GPS, and no answers for his cargo. His route, once seen as suspicious, had exposed something far more dangerous. And this leads us to the question, how many of these delivery routes are still running across the country right now? Do you think more safe houses are still hidden in plain sight? Let us know what you think in the comments below. The more agents dug, the more they uncovered. Short-term leases were found under false identities, often using the names of international students or elderly residents who were unaware that their identities had been stolen. One lease agreement had been signed using a temporary passport number registered out of Honduras. Rent was always paid in cash. Sometimes payment came from prepaid debit cards loaded remotely from out of state. Inside the homes, investigators found soundproofing foam, false ventilation panels, industrial air filtration systems, and discarded packaging with residue traces. Furniture was sparse and easily movable. Surveillance cables ran along baseboards, feeding into hard drives hidden behind drywall. One home had a set of 4 mounted monitors showing live camera feeds from all directions. Each location operated independently, but when viewed together, they followed the exact blueprint. The setup was modular, allowing it to be replicated in other cities within a matter of days. One raid in Texas uncovered freshly unpacked equipment identical to that found in California. The surveillance operation took months. Drones captured thermal imagery. Undercover vehicles followed late-night trips. Every route was logged. Every piece of mail was traced. It wasn't until agents compiled all this into a single digital framework that the whole picture became visible. What began as a simple speeding violation had now become a multi-state investigation. And it was only the beginning of what would become one of the most coordinated federal operations in years. Now that the first couriers network had been uncovered, the agencies turned their eyes toward the people operating the safe houses themselves. The first door came down just after 4 o'clock. It was a quiet one-story home with a trimmed lawn and a child's bicycle on the porch. But when the agents stepped inside, they saw no bedrooms, no kitchen, and no furniture for living. Instead, the floor had been raised slightly, and the wood felt soft under their boots. A closer look revealed the truth. Beneath a thin layer of laminate was a trapdoor. When they pulled it open, the air changed. Inside the hidden basement were vacuum-sealed stacks of U.S. currency. It totaled over $2, 7 million, sorted by denomination and marked with color-coded stickers. The way it was arranged made one thing clear. This wasn't just storage. It was staging. The cash was packaged, tagged, and ready for movement. And it wasn't the only thing hidden down there. A bundle of bonophones sat in a cardboard box beside 2 USB drives and a pair of handwritten ledgers wrapped in plastic. The ledgers listed coded initials, dates, and routing numbers that investigators would later connect to money laundering fronts across 4 states. Another house told a different story. This one was registered as a commercial workshop. From the outside, it appeared to be an aging auto repair shop, but the garage was spotless. No grease, no tools, no oil stains. Instead, agents found steel shelves packed with long rifle cases, plastic tubs filled with ammunition, and a wall lined with bulletproof vests. The final count reached 89 weapons, including high-seat caliber military rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and handguns with their serial numbers filed off. Some had custom parts and foreign markings. 2 suppressors were still in their plastic wrapping. One vest had a patch belonging to a cartel enforcer unit based in northern Mexico. Agents photographed every item and began the long process of cataloging. The stash was so large that it took 3 hours to remove all weapons from the premises. A laptop found under the front desk contained encrypted folders with shipment records and access logs showing password attempts from outside the United States. And this wasn't a stash house. It was a weapons cache for crossbow supply, but it was the third site that changed the tone of the operation. This one looked like an abandoned home with broken siding and boarded windows. When agents entered, the smell was sharp. The air held the sting of chemicals and dust. In the back room, covered by thick plastic sheeting, they found an entire processing setup. Bricks of heroin sat beside heat-sealed bags of fentanyl pills. Cocaine was measured and wrapped on a folding table. The weight of the total seizure came to 9 tons. But it wasn't just the drugs that caught their attention. The walls were fitted with heavy-duty ventilation tubes, the type commonly used in laboratories or industrial spaces. These vents were designed to cycle air and mask strong odors. Filters had been swapped weekly. There were no windows in the room, only dim LED strips taped to the ceiling. And in the corner, a single camera blinked with a red light. It had been transmitting footage live to a foreign server. Agents pulled the plug, downloaded the lost files, and traced the stream to an ISP in Central America. Still, none of this compares to what they found at the fourth location. This house had 2 front rooms filled with boxes and cleaning supplies, but behind a shelf in the hallway, agents discovered a false wall. When it was removed, the sound changed. The air was still. On the other side was a narrow room with soft lights and rows of thin sleeping mats. There were toys scattered across the floor. A child's drawing is taped to one wall. Several notebooks in both Spanish and English sat beside juice cartons and plastic utensils. They weren't alone. In the far end of the room, crouched beside a mattress, was a girl no older than 8. She didn't scream or cry. She didn't speak. Behind her, 2 other children sat still. One of them wrapped in a faded hoodie. It took several minutes before any of them moved. One boy tried to reach for a backpack and was gently stopped by an agent kneeling to speak in Spanish. The children were scared, hungry, and unsure if they were being rescued or relocated. Medical teams rushed in. The children showed signs of exhaustion and dehydration. One had a fever. Another had bruises on both arms. None carried identification. Interviews would later reveal they had been moved several times over the last few weeks, passed between houses, and told to stay silent. This wasn't part of the original operation, but it was no longer a drug raid. It had turned into a human trafficking case. Evidence from the room showed that children were kept in rotation. Notes found in the trash listed arrival and departure times. Most were kept for 24 to 36 hours before being transported elsewhere. Some were picked up by fake guardians using temporary papers. Others were moved in utility vans hidden under tops. A set of keys recovered from the kitchen matched locks found at another location, which was tied to a fake tutoring center. Agents also found QR codes taped under the mattress. Scans led to online dashboards protected by logins. Each profile listed a code, a photo, and a price tag. The names were not real. The images had been blurred, but the system was real. Some of the children had been forced to do labor. Others had been hidden until transit. According to interviews with survivors, some were told they would be adopted. Others were promised jobs in restaurants or stores. None knew they were part of a cartel operation. The emotional toll on the officers was visible. Tactical teams who had come expecting to handle cash and weapons now found themselves carrying sleeping children. Federal victim specialists were brought in immediately. The safe house was converted into a temporary recovery center, while teams fanned out to find out if more children were in transit. Every detail pointed to a laid operation. Drugs were stored and processed. Weapons were staged and labeled. Children were rotated and moved with precision. This wasn't chaos. It was calculated. For the first time in the operation, agents realized the network's accurate scope. It wasn't just about narcotics or guns. It was about control. The cartel had built an underground system capable of moving anything. Cash, weapons, people without a single trace on public records. By the time the fourth site was cleared, agents had already flagged 6 more locations with similar setups. Some in the suburbs, others in industrial parks. But now with proof of trafficking, the mission changed. They weren't just looking for couriers anymore. They were hunting the architects. At 4:17 in the morning, the silence across 6 states broke all at once. From suburban blocks in Texas to industrial zones in California, the coordinated strike unfolded with military precision. Drones hovered silently above rooftops, scanning for movement and relaying real-time thermal images to mobile command vans. SWAT teams moved in tight formation, breaching doors with battering rams and explosive charges. State police units blocked major roads and alleys, shutting off every possible exit. This was not a routine raid. It was a full-scale federal takedown. For months, 3 major agencies had been building the operation piece by piece. The FBI was in charge of tracking the network's brain. Their cyber division had traced patterns of encrypted messages, foreign VPNs, and central command signals routed through offshore servers. The DEA focused on narcotics and weapons. They identified chemical storage sites, tracked precursor shipments, and located firearms caches tied to previous cartel gun crimes. Homeland Security Investigations, known as HSI, took charge of human trafficking leads. They followed immigration records, monitored child welfare tips, and flagged false guardianship filings. The decision to launch came after a key breakthrough. An encrypted laptop recovered from one of the courier safe houses had finally been cracked. Inside was a network map. It revealed node connections, handler profiles, delivery times, and digital wallets tied to cryptocurrency laundering. It showed which couriers operated in which state and which safe houses were high priority. Most importantly, it listed shift schedules and known hours of operation. That is why agents moved in while it was still dark. In Nevada, a 2-story home in a quiet cul-de-sac was first on the list. Agents slipped through the side gate and took position. When the signal came, they rushed in. Inside, they found 2 men already awake, one of them attempting to erase a phone. In the bedroom, under a pillow, lay a pistol with a serial number filed off. Next to it were rubber bands and a heat sealer. On the floor was a still warm microwave, and inside it, scorched currency was visible. The suspects had tried to destroy evidence, but they ran out of time. In Texas, officers approached a small ranch house that had appeared empty for weeks. Neighbors thought it was a summer rental, but when the front door was breached, agents found 5 people inside, one of whom dove through a window and tried to escape through a narrow canal behind the property. He was caught within minutes. Inside, agents recovered 2 AR-style rifles, several tablets with messaging apps still open, and a crate filled with fake IDs. Similar scenes played out in Arizona, Indiana, Georgia, and California. At one location, a suspect tried to flush a flash drive down the toilet. Another was found hiding in a ceiling crawl space. Some cooperated, others resisted. One man barricaded himself in a back room, forcing SWAT to deploy a tactical SHIELD team. Another woman faked a medical emergency to delay processing, but was exposed by a paramedic trained in deception detection. In total, 142 individuals were taken into custody before sunrise. Among them were high-value targets. One courier leader had managed routes across 3 states and oversaw dozens of lower-tier operatives. A financial handler was found to have records of over 600 crypto transfers, all structured to evade federal thresholds. He had used shell companies with names tied to construction, landscaping, and online consulting. In California, a weapons supplier was caught with a shipment manifest listing part numbers for suppressors and tactical gear sourced from Central America. At a site in Georgia, a woman known as the Watcher had been operating a child holding room. Her task was to maintain silence, administer sleep medication, and notify law enforcement handlers of their presence. What united all these individuals was their role in keeping the system alive. They were not street-level dealers. They were infrastructure. The agents seized dozens of encrypted phones, tablets, and USB devices. One of them held the master ledger. It outlined the payment tiers for every level of courier, including bonuses for completing multiple runs without stops. It included punishment codes for lost shipments and performance charts that ranked handlers based on their reliability and performance. The cartel had been operating with the logic of a corporation, but beneath it was something far more violent. The take-on of these individuals meant more than arrests. It disrupted the entire chain of operations. With the central financial nodes disabled, drug shipments lost their logistics. Weapons lost their distributors. Children in holding sites were no longer under threat. The network had collapsed in the middle. Even more importantly, the raid revealed how deep the system had gone. One seized phone showed group chats that included corrupt officials, intermediaries with government access, and even distant business fronts used for laundering. The evidence gathered would lead to follow-up investigations, requests for international cooperation, and forensic audits of several banks and charities. But the most telling sign of the raid's impact was the silence that followed. By mid-morning, none of the cartel's usual communication channels had resumed. Signal groups were inactive. Bitcoin wallets froze. Email relays shut down. For the first time in months, the system went quiet. Federal spokespeople confirmed that the raid had been successful. No agents were injured. All arrested suspects were transported to secure holding facilities for processing. Victim assistance teams began interviews immediately. Cyber teams continued forensic extraction of devices to track any remaining nodes. It would take weeks to analyze everything. But one thing was sure, the cartel's financial backbone in the United States had been snapped. Still, one part of the puzzle remained unresolved. The name La Sombra reappeared in several files, sometimes as the sender, sometimes as a flagged keyword. No complete identity was confirmed. No confirmed location was found, but investigators believed he was the architect, the one directing shipments from outside the country. And with his network broken, he was likely watching. What began with a single traffic stop ended with one of the largest federal crackdowns in recent years. A suspicious driver in Arizona led investigators into the shadows of a sprawling cartel operation that had silently rooted itself in the heart of American neighborhoods. Through patience, coordination, and precision, U.S. law enforcement agencies uncovered an underground empire that trafficked not only drugs and weapons, but also children. The success of the 4:17 a.m. raid marked a defining moment in the country's fight against transnational crime. This was more than a successful takedown. It was a turning point. The raid disrupted a high-level cartel infrastructure built to withstand detection. It dismantled a network that processed synthetic drugs in suburban homes, moved weapons across state borders, and exploited minors for both labor and concealment. Just as critically, it tore apart the financial structure that kept everything alive. Encrypted ledgers, cryptocurrency routes, fake companies, and digital laundering streams were all exposed. It was a clear blow against three of the most dangerous threats facing American cities: synthetic narcotics, child trafficking, and underground financial crime. Still, one figure remains outside the reach of justice. La Sombra, the man believed to be the architect of the network, was not captured. He is thought to be operating from overseas, watching the damage from afar. And while his empire within the United States has collapsed, the threat he represents remains. His digital fingerprints were found across multiple recovered devices, and his alias continues to surface in encrypted chat logs. Federal officials have made it clear this is not over. With the domestic structure neutralized, the next step will be an international pursuit. Intelligence teams are already mapping potential hideouts, allies, and safe zones across Central and South America. For Lombra, the walls are closing in.